Hello and welcome to this edition of The Hill with April Ryan. We have a lot in the rundown, so let's get right to it. 804,000 borrowers will soon breathe a sigh of relief. President Joe Biden has found a way to go around the U.S. Supreme Court decision and erase the debt of college loan borrowers who still hold college tuition debt through federal programs. Biden has found fixes to erase $39 billion worth of debt of those with current monthly payments under existing income-driven repayment plans. If a borrower of a federal college loan meets the forgiveness threshold of 20 or 25 years, a borrower's remaining balance is then wiped. The Congressional Black Caucus is in opposition to two judiciary nominees up for consideration in the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee. The CBC is opposed to the blue slip process, where certain senators are denying a meeting over concerns of the Biden judicial nominees. One of the requests from the CBC is to create a process to consult the Congressional Black Caucus members with a jurisdictional interest in the nomination on the process. Nevada Congressman Stephen Horsford, who is currently the head of the Congressional Black Caucus.
So the Congressional Black Caucus, our membership, issued a letter to Chairman Durbin opposing all nominations, quite honestly, but the two specifically out of Louisiana, based on the egregious nature by which there was a lack of consultation of members from that state, until or unless there's resolution on the reforms that we've called for to the blue slip.
The newest member of the civil rights community is Reverend Freddie Haynes of Texas, who takes over as the head of the Rainbow Push organization that has been led for decades by Reverend Jesse Jackson. Over the weekend at the Rainbow Push Convention, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke of Reverend Jackson and his efforts for equality. Jackson, the former lieutenant of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is retiring from the organization he founded as he's living with the debilitating effects of Parkinson's. Jackson's credits include running for president in the 1980s, freeing hostages, and being the kitchen cabinet member of then-President Bill Clinton. During the Clinton years, Jackson was credited with being the architect of the work to bridge the gap for the digital divide, particularly in poor and rural parts of the country where technology at the time was costly or non-existent. He ultimately lost his presidential connections during the George W. Bush years, as that president refused for a period of time to meet with many of the traditional civil rights leaders. Jackson never met with President Barack Obama after being caught on a hot mic on Fox News, making a gesture and comments Obama found offensive. There's a major call to resource our historically black colleges and universities from Nikole Hannah Jones, staff writer at the New York Times Magazine and the Knight Chair in Race and Journalism at Howard University, and also the iconic author of the 1619 Project. She's making this request in response to the Supreme Court's recent decision to end affirmative action in the admissions process.
Why don't we, instead of begging for a few seats at Harvard, right? Even with affirmative action, Black students were under-enrolled at Harvard. Even with affirmative action, Black students were under-enrolled at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Instead of begging for those seats, let's actually resource the schools that have always accepted and educated Black students properly.
Meanwhile, there's a connection to 1619 and HBCUs. Many of the nation's HBCUs were born out of slavery or immediately following slavery. Staying on the theme of education, the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, says a lack of education is the feeder of crises that we're currently witnessing. I caught up with the New York mayor, who has a strong concern over education during this election cycle.
If we can get education under control and not have 65% of Black and brown children in New York City that's not proficient in reading and writing, as well as in other cities, it shows that that's the feeder of the crisis that we are facing. We're never going to get this right if we don't start preparing our children for the future.
And that's it for this week's edition of The Hill. Until next time, peace.